We are live.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for this IREC web series talk. Today we are here with Mr. Sandeep Kataria. He's the Managing Director and CEO for Bata India, and he's doing some fantastic work when it comes to how omnichannel retailing today needs to be looked at as from a brand's perspective, and also from the perspective of understanding how we'll go forward as a brand in these difficult times of pandemic to ensure that business continues. And as new normal is coming upon us, Mr. Kataria will today share what are the initiatives that they are taking here at Bata India in order to ensure that the business continuity remains, and everybody in the organization and at large business partners and everybody, they are able to, at least to a large extent, continue as if it was business as normal. Welcome, Mr. Kataria. We're delighted to have you here at the IREC web series, and we're looking forward to a wonderful talk with you as you share with us more about Bata India's initiatives. So let me start with a question which I'm sure you get asked a lot, but it's something that is extremely critical, is that how do you think the retailing has changed during these COVID times? What, and I mean, some structural changes that you feel have sort of taken place forever in the retail industry in India, and some things which we'll go back to once the pandemic is over.
Yeah. No, I think there is a lot which is changing, but it would be a little, too early for us to see how this will end up post COVID. I think there are some things that we can be sure the consumers will be more open to, and therefore some changes which they will be ready to accept as we go forward. And I think one of the big ones there is about the whole omni-channel experience. And I specifically say omni-channel instead of e-commerce, because for us, if you look at it, while e-commerce was a good solid channel for us for the last several years, that has clearly seen the fastest rebound once the unlock has happened and has been able to come back to its pre-COVID levels. But what has also happened is that we have realized that it is not just for the digital native, people who are very, very comfortable with doing e-commerce, being ready to make a payment online, use a debit card or a wallet to actually make a payment. But there are also the digital adopters and the digital novices who we need to take along. And we are seeing that a lot more acceptance on that front as well. What do I mean by that? Digital adopters are what we say are quite comfortable using the net, use it for things like chatting with their families, whether it's through WhatsApp or through other means, are ready to do what we are doing right now, but are still hesitant to make a purchase online. And these are consumers we've realized actually there's a sizable number who we can reach out and help them shop through a WhatsApp channel, which for them is far more comfortable. They can see the product. They can also sometimes do a video chat with a store manager and have a person face to associate with their transaction. And also, if need be, pay on delivery at their houses. And then there's a third channel which we are also seeing coming about, which is assisted shopping on the net. And this has been a bit of an offshoot of our store on wheels, where we have gone to consumers and we have realized that while we are taking our initial learning when we endeavored, when we started going to housing societies and consumers, was that we realized that there was very strict mandate for elders and the children not to step out, and said, those are very big consumers for Bata. How can we make sure that they are serviced as well? And the intention therefore was initially to carry a lot more shoes for the elderly, for the children. And there we realized actually there were a lot of other demands. It was just not the what we would classify as slightly older target audience products. And we ended up taking orders on a tablet or on a smartphone, assisting those people to place an order and then deliver back at home for them later. And this has again opened up a third piece. So what I'm really coming to is there will be changes. And I think it'll not be a straight linear line where you say, okay, everybody is going to stop going to brick and mortar stores and go online, or everybody will start using, now less fashion and only casual. But there will be trends, and people will be far more open to try. So as retailers, as brand owners, as manufacturers, it's our responsibility to be very, be in a listening mode and be agile to be able to cater to such changing demands, changing moods, and changing preferences.
Sure. So particularly at Bata, what kind of, digitization, particularly in this pandemic period from March to now onwards, have you seen the business going online in terms of, percentage terms? How much business do you think immediately shifted in the online environment? And also, I mean, do you think it will be eventually have impact on the brick and mortar stores somewhere? And what kind of readiness is brands keeping for it? Do you think that, one might close stores later on and be more real in terms of how many stores are really needed? Or do you think some other models, we're already seeing Flipkart talking about dark stores, which are only delivery only stores, or you just go and try on these stores and basically you get delivered with your merchandise at home. So do you feel this, the retail itself, the store itself changing its constitution somewhere?
Yeah, so I think to answer your first question, we have seen the whole digitally enabled sales go up. So as a part contribution to the business, they are almost multiples of what they were earlier. As far as your question on changing is concerned, will retail, and I think this is the what I was touching on. It has needed a pandemic for us to really adopt some of these things. Omnichannel, where we were able to service orders online from our stores, was a capability which we've had now for a year, helping us make our product quite, our inventory in stores more productive, using the last mile from a closest store rather than shipping all the way from a big DC. And that's, I think, something which a lot of retailers have done and more should do if they haven't already done, because it does make your inventory much more productive. And also allows very often for us to show consumers a much wider range than what a typical brick and mortar store can accommodate. For Bata, for example, a typical store will have between 1,500 to 2,000 articles,
Right.
but my full catalog is probably more like 10,000 articles.
Yeah.
And how do you get those to more consumers? And that's where things like omnichannel come in. But what is changing, and I think this is the learning we're getting from the pandemic, is that even for the brick and mortar stores, they need to not see this necessarily as a, either as an online or brick and mortar. The brick and mortar themselves, stores can expand and see how they can reach consumers. So as I was describing to you, a WhatsApp chat-based ordering. Yeah, a consumer knows you through us. For example, we have a Bata Club, which is quite active, which we know our consumers who walk into us. For us to be able to talk to them and service them at their home itself is something which is easily done by the store manager. Everybody is today quite adept at a WhatsApp kind of a chat. And then to add that feature, and similarly add another feature of click and collect, add the feature of booking an order in the store and being able to then deliver later. All of these are facets which a normal brick and mortar store can add and get much closer to the consumer. Yeah, I think there is a big part which will continue to stay, especially in places like, products like footwear, where while you can, through AI see and feel the product. Now we already have a technology where we can check your size on at home. But having said that, the feeling of the snug fit, and does the product really fit you well and as you like, and does it give you the confidence once you wear it, are things you still only can do in a brick and mortar store. So I think there will be a need and a role to play. In India, I think we will still be very heavily biased towards a brick and mortar, especially in fashion, footwear kind of categories. Where it is important to get a fit, just specifications are not enough. But yes, I do see a far greater openness from consumers to try the hybrid models rather than trying to stick to one or the other.
Absolutely. And, I also see that's a wonderful initiative that you've taken, wherein if the consumers are not able to come to the store, you've gone closer to the consumers, which is with your Bata on Wheels concept, wherein you getting into the housing societies, you getting closer to your customer. So do you really see something which is, this is as an answer to a crisis, or do you see some big play in it even in the future?
Yeah, see, as I was saying, the idea came about because for us, Bata caters to the whole family audience, right? We start from pretty much a toddler, or in fact, even lower, infants at 6 months and upwards, and all the way to the grandfathers and the third, fourth generation in the family. And for us to be able to cater to all of them, it was becoming difficult because there were uh, the all the advisories which had gone out were suggesting that children and people above 60 should stay at home, and that's a very vital target audience for us. And we were feeling we were not being able to serve, and it got sparked off from a friend calling up me and saying, okay, can you please go and have this delivered from his 80-year-old father. And so we said, okay, is this an underserved audience right now? How can we actually reach out to them? And so that's where it started from. As I said, and we tested it out in Delhi. The Delhi team was really, really quick on it. They tried it out, had the agreements with some of the condominiums, some sector markets, and tried out different permutations and combinations on it. And we soon realized that it was not just the children and the elderly which were needing this, but it was a solution that we could actually add to a lot more audiences and a lot more spaces, including smaller towns, which initially we thought would not be such an issue. And therefore, to us, Ritu, it's looking like it's an added channel for us to keep. Yeah, it's something which we can continue to do. What will change, however, is that the audience which is currently sitting at home and therefore in a bit is a captive audience pretty much through the week. As things go back a little back to normal, people do start traveling back to offices. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more towards the weekend or holidays. But I think
Right.
it's a channel which is here to stay for us. And the way the team has taken it on, I think they're quite excited about being able to reach out and meet consumers in their locality, increasing the presence for the brand and the relationship that we have with them.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's about reaching out to the consumers where they are today. And so if this channel works out well, then so be it. And, you can reach out to so many smaller markets through it.
Absolutely. I
And,
think that is one
but
of the joys of a brand like us, where we have stores in almost 600 odd cities, and with our 1,300, 1,400 of our own stores and another 200 of our franchise stores, we can really reach out into many more consumers who may not be able to sometimes travel to the stores for whatever reason.
Absolutely. Another area that I would want to touch upon with you is that today I also see that every brand is trying to use digital reseller or a digital third party like a Flipkart or a Amazon, or and where they put up their own stores and do it from there. Now we've already seen, particularly from the restaurant industry, if I look at that example, there's been a huge complication. There's been a huge conflict of interest between the restaurant and the third party platform. So do you see that as a viable mode, or do you think that that could be one mode of doing business, wherein one uses a third party platform to put their brand and reach out to a larger mass of customers, but eventually it is something that one would also do on one's own? For example, Bata having its own online independent e-commerce platform. And then of course, there are stores, and then there is social commerce, as you mentioned about WhatsApp groups, and probably, I don't know, even maybe digital resellers. You might want to appoint digital franchisees at some point of time to reach out to the customer digitally. So, I mean, what would be the entire spectrum that you are seeing
Yeah, so
for?
I think, as you said, it is the entire spectrum that we need to participate in. We have a very strong Bata.in play, which is our biggest store already in the country. It does carries more assortment than any of my stores, does more business on a daily basis. and also is able to get features to consumers which they may not be, like I mentioned, being able to measure your foot size at home, etc., and then get recommendations basis your foot size. But then, as you said, there is also an opportunity. We do have some of our distributors who look after our distribution business also participating in online business to sell to multi-brand outlets.
Sure.
That's a channel that we use. We of course participate in the marketplaces, and on that one, Ritu, it's a adage that they talk about, which is that you have to go fish where the fish are. So you can't be sitting on the side and putting in your fishing rod if the fish are in a different place. So you go there. If there is a consumer which is actually wanting to buy online in a marketplace, for big brands, for market leaders, you do need to absolutely be participating in them. Of course, you need to be participating in a way which works for your full ecosystem. So things like pricing, what assortment you carry, also the assortment to be in tune with what the audience is. Organizations and all retailers need to be learning all the time the nuances of the audience in an online versus a brick and mortar, between stores. So like no two stores of ours have exactly the same assortment.
Yes.
The same thing needs to carry on into marketplaces. So each marketplace needs to have its own assortment. Your priorities, what you show up, need to change. And so therefore, I think it is a thing about having a view on all of them. For depending on how big your size is, where you are, you obviously need to prioritize and see which makes business sense for the individual brand, as the case may
So
be.
is it so is it also changing the business on the back end for you? I mean, in terms of how you manage inventories and how do you manage
Absolutely. Yeah.
your teams manage with your other partners and online teams as well? How has that changed?
Of course, no, that absolutely has changed. As I was saying, the first thing is that the inventory is far more productive. So whether the inventory is sitting in a distribution center or in a store, or now wherever it is, even with distributors, how can we really use that inventory as if it was available to everybody? So online inventory therefore allows you to, of course, take advantage of that and make it much more productive. It also needs you to have the right implication and changes in your teams, as you touched on. So in a lot of our bigger stores, which are the stores get a ranking depending on how good they are at servicing online orders. So in our better ranked, in our top 100 stores, we actually have dedicated teams which are looking at online orders, which are able to therefore pack, turn around quickly, make sure that the shipments are as quick as we possibly can. Then in other stores, we have people who are more adept at taking WhatsApp orders, people who really mastered that technique, and individuals who are good at such things. So you kind of use your teams depending on how what works best for them.
So how are you getting your teams aligned to it? I mean, for essentially for a brand which stands for more brick and mortar than digital, and Bata has always been about the store. So how are you getting your teams to align to remote working and to be able to think more digital and to be able to think that
Yeah.
the digital channel will of course build more business, as you said, be where the fish is, but how particularly I feel that I can understand for digital businesses, they were always online. So for them, it's probably, yeah, just a different office. No, it's a home office. But, when people were in the store and now they suddenly for 3 months, they were sitting at home. And now also, you don't know with odd and even so many things happening in the marketplace all the time. How are you making sure that, they are with you? How are you taking them together in this change?
Yeah, so I think, as I say, every dark cloud has a silver lining. So the pandemic has been responsible. There is no doubt that the biggest driver for digitalization in many organizations has been COVID-19. So while we
Totally.
always had the tools, so we had tested out, for example, a work from home even ahead of the lockdown. So we were able to quite smoothly move out. But you're right. I mean, the retail stores, finally you need to be in the retail stores to sell. And therefore, I think working from home, having spent that time, having experienced some of these for themselves, the adoption always starts, as they say, at home for any new habit. So for having done that, we found that people coming back, the teams coming back, have been far more open to the whole toolkits, of much greater adoption of the same, in some cases, the same toolkits has been faster. Having said that, also, we've been able to then use the lockdown to titrate, to make to pivot a little bit on what we were offering. So for example, if you look at a marketplace like Flipkart, we used to sell to a big wholesaler who would then list and service consumers from Flipkart. Coming out of the lockdown, we said we will list the stocks from our stores itself. So let's list and use those stocks on marketplaces as well, not just on Barter.in and home delivery orders. And that has suddenly seen a much greater pull from some of the stores. And when it's also, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. As you suddenly see so much more coming through, we've had to again adopt, make mechanisms, get the right teams in. The other thing which has helped is also something which we were beginning to do for a little while within Bata, was a lot more cross-functional movement within the company. So people moving from retail into distribution and institutional business, or moving into the franchise business, now moving into the e-commerce business as well. So that team clearly has had to be strengthened. And rather than going out and recruit, we've opened that, given teams internally a choice to be able to, take up roles in under the whole online e-commerce from anywhere to anywhere business. And that's been a great opportunity for some of them to learn new tricks, new techniques, but also strengthen our own hand as far as the teams are concerned. People who understand retail being able to then deploy omni-channel much more strongly.
Sure. And to avoid frictions. I mean,
Yeah, I think, see, the friction when of course, when you start seeing the business come into your own till, when you're counting the money, I think the friction tends to go away.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. So we've just got a question from the social channel. So Rajit is asking that Bata was essentially a value brand for many years, but more recently, in the last few years, you have added many other brands also. So is this something that a lot of brands will continue to do even in the coming times? Or do you think it's a good strategy? It builds, I think, more revenues for the business. That's what you
So I think one of the things that we've been doing very consciously is that I think for Bata to be relevant over the years, we needed to relook and understand what the consumer was needing. Yeah, we've always stood for very good quality, great value for money products, but we weren't necessarily known for our fashion quotient or our new collections. And so when we were all our new technology innovations, over the last 3-4 years, we've actually been able to really strengthen that pipeline as far as the innovation is concerned, as far as fashion and trendiness is concerned, which has helped us to get in more consumers, get in the younger consumer, be more relevant to the millennials. And that, I think, is again something that every brand needs to do, needs to go back, look at, hear what their consumers are saying, their current consumers, their prospective consumers, and therefore move and change your assortment to suit the need of the consumer. And I think right now is even more important, because we need to hear, we need to really have our ear to the ground and be very agile to change depending on what the consumer is needing. So one is, of course, fish where the fish are. So move out, go to consumers if we need to, if they're not able to come to us, but also carry the right assortment, the right articles that they need. So if there is more need for open chappals and sandals, we must carry a bigger collection of them. We must bring in new innovation on that very quickly.
Sure. So there is Sunita who's asking that how does online business affect your retail partners?
Mhm.
I mean,
So yeah,
I think the question is that, I mean, again, the conflict question really that we were talking about, but
yeah. So I think as far as retail stores are concerned, for us already, as I was saying, the retail stores can book an order. If consumer walks in, you liked a particular shoe, and you wanted the 9 size, but you only had 8. Clearly now I can book an order and deliver it at home. Or you didn't get the right color for yourself. I can deliver it at home. The other case is that I actually booked an order online for you, and the store is able to deliver. So what we are now rolling out for our franchisee stores is that they can book. They're typically, our franchise stores are in the smaller tier
right.
towns, or in the suburbs of the big metros where rental costs are slightly more affordable, etc. And there, the typical assortment that you have may not carry the high value or the latest fashion trend sometimes, or may not carry some of the specific brands. Uh, Using Omnichannel, using Bata.in, they can actually book an order. Yeah. So without having to stock inventory on them, something which is not going to be fast moving, they can actually participate
Sure.
in it as well. The other piece, of course, is around the pricing. And I think that's probably some of the questions around how do you make sure that the pricing is right. And again, when you have one inventory, you can actually run and show the same prices across the channel. Each of the partners, whether it's a large format retail store, whether it's a lifestyle shopper stop or central, they will run their own sales, and the prices for a short while will be different. Similarly, online, they will run a event and prices might be different. But those are small changes, small events for very short time, and consumers understand that there's an opportunity. That's why we see the spike
Yeah.
in the sales during those events. And I think those are things that we all need to just take into our stride and say those are pretty much the tools of the trade for each channel, which may be slightly different.
Sure. There's another question which has come is that, you know, how are you planning to expand in smaller cities post the pandemic?
Yeah. So I think that one is, especially, all the franchise partners, a lot of your audience, if they'd be interested in, is we are looking at the franchise route for a while. We started this journey about 3 years ago. Now we have 200 franchise partners. We've opened, I think, about almost 45 stores already this year. And we see a good momentum on that one. The good news on this one is when the same franchise owners open a second and a third store, you've got something right. This is a business, a channel which is working for both the entrepreneur, the franchise owner, as well as the company. And it also, for us, it works well because it reduces the administrative load on us when it goes to smaller towns, but it also gives a great opportunity for entrepreneurs to reach out. I've always believed and maintained that the brand Bata has a much bigger space in the mind than it has in the wallet, and that's because we were not able to reach as many people as the advertising or the brand awareness was there. So the company owned stores can get to about 500 odd towns, but we have another at least 1,000 more towns in this country which can afford to have an exclusive branded outlet from Bada. So we are only 200 out of those 1,000 through. So there's a lot of opportunity for franchise partners to come in. Over the last few years, we've also tightened our own processes, online ordering systems, being able to see and be very transparent on what stocks we have, our schemes, to be able to take and make sure that the stores look identical to a Bata company store. So for a consumer, there's really no difference whether it's the look of the store, the experience, the access to assortment of the articles, all of that now looks very similar. In fact, we even go on end of season sale together across the business. So now it's absolutely the same experience.
Sure. I also see that, Bata has a lot of licensed merchandise that you do, wherein you partner with a lot of entertainment characters, and you also sort of, particularly for your kids range,
Right.
that is something very visible. And, kids actually look forward to go to buying Disney merchandise from your
Mhm.
store and your range of merchandise. Is it something that you plan to continue doing, or is it something only short-lived
No,
strategy?
absolutely. I think that's something which has worked really well for us, especially as you said in the children's categories. The Disney partnership has been great, but also in the higher end, the partnership with some of our global partners, where we have the license to design, manufacture, and sell in India. So people like shawls, shoes, which are great for consumers, or Naturalizer, which is a very large US brand, but now something we have license to design, manufacture, and sell, or Hush Puppies, which is by far our biggest licensed partner. Those are great, valuable relationships for us, and allow us to reach segments of consumers sometimes which we are not being able to serve from our own current brand assortment.
Sure. So, finally, as we come to the close of the interview, I would love for you to give some advice, some ideas for a lot of other. Today, retail is challenged in
Mhm.
India, particularly a lot of Indian retailers who are still young and getting or growing their businesses. What would be your advice to them to, keep going and not to give
Mhm.
up?
Yeah, no, I think there is we have the worst part of the pandemic, I think, is over. From the retail point of view, and I don't mean the fact that the infection has gone away, but the mortality rate, our ability to really handle it, we can see that we are getting much more confident as a country to be able to take that on. So there is now the slowly, inch by inch, we're beginning to get back to the pre-COVID levels. In this circumstances, I think there are three things that we are using, and I'll happy to share that. First, I think you need to make sure that our teams and our consumers are safe. So we need to take the cautions, be very, very careful, follow the SOPs, and make sure that we are being safe in everything that we do. So while the infection is beginning to be better managed, the numbers are still rising. So we need to be. So I think that's the first part. Second, as a retailer, I think cash is king. We need to make sure that we are managing our cash inventory, our sales, our costs in such a way that we are on top of that. Talking to the bankers, seeing if you need to make any adjustments to that is an important piece for everybody. So we need to keep a close eye on that, titrate it down, correct it, make sure that we find ways to get better on our cash management for everybody. And the third is to be very, very agile. I think I mentioned that earlier, but to be ready to listen, to change, and make adjustments in line with what the consumer are asking. If the consumer is, as it did when we opened up in early June and July, we saw a lot more opportunity for consumers coming back and looking for chappals, looking for open shoes, sandals. We're now beginning to see, no, that was there, but that's stabilized a bit. But people are now coming back and buying much more casual. So instead of fashion, it's casual. Instead of fashion, it's more fitness. So are you getting the right collections in your kitty? So whatever you are selling, whether you're in footwear or in fashion or whatever you are selling, make sure that you are able to listen. This is a time for very steep learning for everybody in retail, especially to be able to move, change our assortments, and reflect what we are hearing from our consumer. And if it's omni-channel, whether it's in Bata on kiosk, on wheels, the kiosk that we have put up. So all of those things come out of hearing needs from consumers.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Kataria. I think that was a wonderful conversation, and you were so patient in terms of answering everything that was coming along your way. And I think this is what we all need. We need patience. We need to be able to go on and survive and make the most of this pandemic. I also do believe that, whosoever is going to beat the crisis best is also going to be sort of there for the long haul and do a lot of other things. So I think it's only people like yourself who would make or bring that possible and would inspire others also to continue to do better, do more with their brands. Thank you very much for joining us. And hopefully next time we'll see you not across the screen, but in person as we get to see what changes are happening in business. Thank you for
Sure.
joining us.
Look forward. Thank you, Ritu. Thank you for inviting me and having this chat. Cheers. My pleasure.
Thank you.